North Korea goes ahead with more missile provocations this morning. This follows the joint air drills carried out by Seoul and Washington over the weekend. Seoul and Tokyo once again failed to find an agreement over compensating Korean victims of Japan's wartime forced labor. South Korea's FM urged Japan to make a political decision for a sincere response. Search and rescue operations wind down in Türkiye, with the death toll crossing 46,000. North Korea continues its act of aggression, firing 2 short-range ballistic missiles this morning in protest against South Korea and the U.S. joint exercises. Our Oh Soo-young has the latest on this developing story.
North Korea has fired a second round of ballistic missiles in the space of a few days, with the leadership warning it would turn the Pacific into a shooting range. South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff says the North fired 2 short-range ballistic missiles around 7 a.m. on Monday, this time towards the EC. The provocation coincided with regime leader Kim Jong-un's sister, quoted again on state-run media, saying that the frequency of the North's use of the Pacific as a shooting range depends on the actions of the US. This came less than a day after South Korea and the United States held a combined air exercise, flying 10 aircraft over the Korean peninsula, including 2 B-1B bombers, an advanced strategic asset. The joint air exercise was a response to the North launching an intercontinental ballistic missile into waters off Japan's west coast on Saturday. The missile of choice on Saturday was a Hwasong-15, which was capable of reaching the US mainland. After it was successfully tested in late 2017, the regime declared the completion of its nuclear force. It has since then developed the new Hwasong-17, along with suspected solid-engine ICBMs. Still, as the new missiles are not yet deployable, with the Hwasong-17 breaking up and crashing last November, it's likely an upgraded Hwasong-15 was launched on Saturday to minimize the chance of failure in driving home its message. The North has been protesting against the upcoming joint drills by South Korea and the US. The Allies plan to hold tabletop exercises at the Pentagon this week, practicing scenarios involving a North Korean nuclear attack. They will also hold the annual Freedom Shield exercise in March, featuring defense-oriented computer simulator training. The North has always used such drills as an excuse to further escalate its aggression. The South and the US believe the North is likely to increase its provocations over the coming weeks, as it has key state anniversaries and a satellite launch coming up in April. The top diplomats of Seoul, Washington and Tokyo at a security conference in Munich on Saturday jointly condemned the North's missile provocation, calling for stronger sanctions against the regime. With Seoul's Foreign Minister Park Jin warning that Pyongyang is ready for a second nuclear test any time, the 3 officials pledged to strengthen their trilateral cooperation against the North's growing threat to regional security. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Now let's delve deeper into the North's latest missile launches. We're joined by retired Lieutenant General Chun In-bum. He's also a former commander of the ROK Special Forces. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for the invitation.
Sure. So North Korea fired 2 short-range ballistic missiles this morning. Is this also a form of retaliation against South Korea-U.S. joint air drills, like Saturday's ICBM launch? What do you think?
Yes, of course. We're going to see more of these. They're going to shoot missiles of various types, long range, short range. We're going to show them that we can respond with strategic aircraft and other means. And they will respond again with more missiles. So this is something that we should not be surprised about.
Right, and along with the ballistic missile launches, North Korean leader's sister Kim Yo-jong also issued a statement saying that it's up to Washington how often Pyongyang will use the Pacific as its shooting range. Now, what does this mean?
Well, they're trying to turn the tables and blame us for trying to defend our country. It was never in the deal that we would cancel all of our training events, especially the combined training. We've shown our good faith by drawing down on the exercises, but nothing came to fruition. So now we're just normalizing our training, and they're taking that as a cause to develop nuclear weapons.
Right, taking it as an opportunity rather, right, to take on more military activities like this. And also you've mentioned that the North will likely carry out more military activities like this. Can we expect more missile launches to come, or even drone intrusions in the near future? What do you think?
There will be various types and very ingenious ways that they will try to disrupt Korean society. So missile launches, drones, and God knows what else that they'll cook up. The real issue is it could lead to something that nobody wants, not even the North Koreans had intended. So the real danger lies in what will happen unintentionally.
Right, the uncertainty behind the moves. And also, North Korea launched an intercontinental ballistic missile, ICBM, over the weekend. Now, it took about over 9 hours for the launch to be taken place. Now, why did it take over 9 hours from the order?
Well, that 9 hours is kind of misleading because we're taking that number because the North Koreans told us that the initial orders were given at about 8 o'clock in the morning, and the launch was conducted about 5:30 in the afternoon. Now, that's 9 hours, but that doesn't mean that it took that much time to prepare for the launch. They were just, it could have been anything. So 9 hours, if it has any meaning at all, means that it takes them about 9 hours less. They can make a launch within 9 hours. That's all it means, but probably it could be much, much shorter than that.
Right, right. All right. Thank you so much for your insight this morning.
Thank you.
Now, moving on, top diplomats of Seoul and Tokyo met in Germany, only to confirm they were no closer to an agreement over compensating Korean victims of Japan's wartime forced labor. Our Choi Min-jung has the details.
South Korea's Foreign Minister Park Jin met with his Japanese counterpart Yoshimasa Hayashi and urged Japan to make a political decision to resolve the issue of compensating Korean victims of Japan's wartime forced labor. The two held a separate one-on-one meeting in Germany on Saturday on the sidelines of the Munich Security Conference. After the meeting, Park told the press that he has said all he can about the main issues and called on Japan to make a political decision to come up with a sincere response. Seoul's foreign ministry also said in a statement that the two diplomats agreed to communicate closely to resolve the thorny issue. The Japanese Foreign Ministry said the top officials had a frank discussion and agreed to close communications on each diplomatic level. Saturday's talk was Park and Hayashi's fifth meeting since President Yoon took office. The meeting also followed a series of recent working-level talks between the two countries on the issue. Last week, Seoul and Tokyo's first vice foreign minister sat down in Washington to discuss the ongoing dispute without reaching a conclusion. In January, Seoul unveiled plans to compensate the victims through its own public foundation. However, this prompted backlash from the victims, who insist the issue cannot be resolved without a sincere apology and participation from the Japanese companies involved. In landmark rulings in 2018, South Korea's Supreme Court ordered two Japanese companies, Mitsubishi Heavy Industries and Nippon Steel, to compensate the Koreans they subjected to forced labor, but those firms have refused to comply with the orders. Tokyo says the issue of compensation was settled under a normalization treaty signed in 1965. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
Also on the sidelines of the Munich Security Conference on Saturday, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and China's top diplomat Wang Yi held their first face-to-face since Washington shot down a suspected Chinese surveillance balloon. But that meeting did little to ease diplomatic tensions. According to the U.S. State Department, during an hour-long meeting on Saturday, Blinken once again tried Beijing over the balloon incident, calling it an unacceptable violation of U.S. sovereignty and international law. According to Chinese state media CGTN, Wang Yi called on the U.S. to repair the damage to the country's relations. Earlier at the MSC, Wang had called the U.S. response an abuse of the use of force, maintaining that the balloon was a civilian research aircraft accidentally blown off course. However, both officials did say avoiding conflict is in their respective countries' best interest. During the 59th Munich Security Conference over the weekend, global leaders used the international event as an opportunity to call for military support for Ukraine. The U.S. meanwhile warned China against supplying weapons to Russia. Our Song Yoo-jin reports.
The three-day Munich Security Conference came to a close on Sunday local time. Topping the agenda this time round was the almost year-long war in Ukraine. During an interview with Germany's Bild am Sonntag newspaper on the last day of the conference, Kyiv Mayor Vitaly Klitschko called on NATO allies to supply Ukraine with fighter jets to fend off Russian forces. Klitschko added that Ukrainians need everything that is necessary to take back their home country. Global leaders who took part in the conference also voiced similar opinions. The European Union's chief diplomat, Josep Borrell, stressed the importance of increasing and accelerating the EU's military support for Ukraine, saying there is still a lot to be done. Estonia's prime minister also recommended that the EU should pool resources to speed up ammunition production and deliveries to Ukraine. Besides arms shortage, another possible obstacle to ending the war, the supply of weapons to Russia from China. During an interview with CNN on Sunday, the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, said that Beijing would cross a red line if it provides lethal military aid to Moscow. This comes after U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken raised the issue when he met with his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi on Saturday on the sidelines of the conference. After the meeting, Blinken told CBS News that Chinese companies were already providing non-lethal support to Russia, and based on new information, there are concerns these companies could be considering providing lethal support as well. He added that this would result in serious consequences for China. Song Yoo-jin, Arirang News.
Now on to the Türkiye Syria earthquake. After 2 weeks of searching for survivors from the quake, search and rescue operations have wound down, with the focus now on the survivors. Our Lee Seung-jae has more.
Turkish authorities have almost completely brought search and rescue operations to an end 14 days after the initial earthquake struck. With more than 40,000 dead in Turkey and some 5,800 more in Syria, the death toll in the two countries surpassed 46,000. Authorities add that more than 5,700 aftershocks were also reported in Turkey. In Turkey alone, a total of 180,000 personnel, including the military and police, conducted search and rescue operations in the affected regions, which also included 11,500 rescuers from 80 countries, including South Korea, being dispatched. Even with miracle stories of survivors who lasted more than 10 days under rubble, authorities have now shifted their focus to the survivors, ultimately concluding their search and rescue operations.
It's a bit troublesome to live in a place with 5,000 people after living in a home with 5 people. There might be queues for food and toilet.
And much of the attention is given to the young survivors of the deadly earthquakes. Residents of neighboring cities in Turkey, less affected by the earthquakes, came together to create a space for the children. Counselors and teachers were also assigned to provide emotional support, with the focus now on the children's psychological well-being.
We came here to make children who were affected by the earthquake smile. We came here to touch their hearts. I studied child development. As I said, I am here to make use of my knowledge in the best way I can.
Authorities continue to stress the importance of psychological assistance for the survivors, especially the children, many of whom have been left orphaned and homeless. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
COVID-19 vaccinations for infants and toddlers aged 6 months to 4 years begin Monday for those who have made reservations. According to the KDCA, COVID-19 vaccinations for the said group will be given out based on the reservations that were made from January 30th on. Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine specifically for infants and toddlers will be administered with 3 shots at intervals of 8 weeks. Health authorities say vaccination is recommended for young children who are at high risk, especially children with respiratory illnesses. A special ceremony took place to celebrate the entrance and graduation of patients who are suffering from a rare type of muscle disease. Just like Stephen Hawking, the world-renowned physicist who suffered from a similar disease, these students didn't let their condition stop them from pursuing higher education. Our Kim Jung-sil has the story.
A moment to celebrate the years of hard work for the 18 students who are either entering their freshman year of college, continuing with their studies, or graduating with a diploma. All suffer from different types and levels of muscular dystrophy, a rare muscle-related disease that can hinder people from walking, talking, and even breathing. At the Pulmonary Rehabilitation Center here at Yeonsei Gangnam Severance Hospital, customized treatment for each individual has enabled these students to finish school. Meet soon-to-be college freshman Minu, who was diagnosed with spinal muscular atrophy, or SMA, at the age of 5, a genetic disease that significantly weakens muscles, making it difficult to breathe or concentrate. But the treatment at the center helped him overcome some of the difficulties.
네, 그것도 있고 체력적으로도 좀 더 오랜 시간 앉아 있을 수 있게도 해주고 합니다.
Dr. Min Kyung-hyun, on the other hand, recently got his PhD degree in physics from Yonsei University. Calling himself a huge admirer of British physicist Stephen Hawking, Dr. Min wrote his graduation thesis using just one index finger on his keyboard.
뭔가 제가 도움이 되거나 할 수 있는 일이 있으면 뭐 취업을 하든 뭐 저희 교수님은 계속 책을 좀 썼으면 좋겠다고 하시는데 뭐 가능하면 네, 뭐든지 도움이 되는 일 하고 싶습니다.
Professor Kang Sung-woo looked over all of these students.
All I did was just help them breathe better. They couldn't even click a mouse button freely. And look at what they've achieved. It's so inspiring. As a doctor, I feel extremely rewarded.
He also said that he has a message to medical experts abroad.
We offer free educational opportunities for foreign medical experts. We think it's important that medical experts abroad can treat their patients in their own country. So if you're interested in pulmonary rehabilitation procedures, please reach out.
Professor Kang stressed that these types of rare muscle-related diseases are extremely difficult to cure, but that there is a way to live with them. He said that just like his patients, he hopes that more people around the world do not give up on their dreams. Kim Jung-sil, Arirang News.
For a look at the news from around the world, we now turn to our Matthew Ashley joining us here in the studio. Good morning, Matthew.
Good morning, Dami.
Let's start in Bulgaria this morning, where 6 people have been charged with involuntary manslaughter and human trafficking in connection with the deaths of over a dozen migrants.
Well, that's right, Dami. 5 suspects are in custody and 1 has fled the country following the discovery of 18 dead migrants in an abandoned truck. Now, authorities found the vehicle on a dirt road just outside of the capital of Sofia on Friday local time. A total of 52 people from Afghanistan were found in hidden compartments in the truck, crammed together in wet and cold conditions. They had not eaten in days. Now, according to prosecutors, the 18 deaths were caused by a lack of oxygen. The case comes as the European country has seen a surge in cases of human smuggling as thousands look to flee war and poverty. Bulgaria is commonly used as a gateway for migrants from the Middle East, Africa and Asia to enter the EU. Now, moving on, the body of late Ghanaian footballer Christian Atsu has been returned to Ghana. His remains arrived in the capital, Accra, on Sunday local time. It comes a day after his body was discovered in the earthquake rubble of his Turkish apartment in Antakya, Hatay. The 31-year-old had been missing since February 6th, when earthquakes struck the region, killing over 40,000 people across Turkey and Syria. Atsu was playing for local Turkish club Hatay Spor after joining last September. He had scored the winning goal in a local Super League match the day before the disaster. Throughout his career, Atsu played at several well-known clubs, including Porto, Everton and Newcastle United. He also made 65 appearances for Ghana, scoring 10 goals. Turning over to tech news, Meta is set to launch its own paid verification service this week. Rolling out on its Instagram and Facebook platforms, the service will be first released in Australia and New Zealand. Called Meta Verified, it will give user accounts a blue badge and will cost around $12 per month for its web version and around $15 for Apple phone users. Now, according to Meta, the benefits include more post visibility, protection from fake accounts, and a direct line to customer support. Users wanting the service will need to have a profile picture on both platforms that includes their face and a name that matches a government-issued ID. The new Meta service comes after Twitter introduced a similar plan in November called Twitter Blue. And finally, Brazil's famous carnival is back. Celebrated across the country with the biggest crowds drawn in Rio de Janeiro, the 6-day-long annual festival kicked off on Friday local time. Known to generate millions for the local economy, the Rio Tourism Company expects the event will bring $971 million in revenue this year. Rio itself is expected to host over 600 official street parties, and the Brazilian government anticipates some 46 million people will take part in nationwide festivities. Carnival is normally held just before Catholic Lent, a 40-day period of prayer, fasting and austerity. Carnival's full return comes after delays and downsized versions of the event caused by 3 years of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Good morning. Just when we thought spring might be well underway, winter weather strikes back. A sudden big drop in readings makes it feel so much colder, along with that sharp winds this morning. In fact, feels like temperatures are close to -5 degrees Celsius here in the capital, and morning temperatures are 2 to 8 degrees lower than yesterday in most parts of the country. The brief cold snap will hit its peak tomorrow morning, going down to below -5 degrees Celsius here in Seoul, and will remain colder than season norms through Wednesday morning. Then, other than chillier temperatures, we'll have sunny skies with good air to breathe in. Afternoon highs will be 3 to 5 degrees lower than Sunday. Seoul seeing a high of just 2 degrees Celsius this afternoon, but it will rather feel like it's sub-zero all day. Southern provinces will have a much more bearable afternoon with Jeju Island under a strong wind advisory. And it's forecast to be quite windy on Jeju through tomorrow, so please be mindful of that. And the cold snap eases as we head towards the end of the week. With that in mind, here's a look at the weather conditions around the globe.
That wraps up today's New Day at Arirang. Do stay with us for more updates throughout the day. Thanks for watching.